Hello, that's a lecture about financing early startups. Before I was creating this lecture, I was actually thinking what to present here, because it's a quite complicated topic. In every phase of a startup process, you need different sources of finance, you have different problems. And therefore we have limited to the very early startups. Actually, when you want to start up, where would you get your first money? That's the lecture about. And the second limitation is I tried to frame it a bit to the environment here. We are in Berlin, and you have certain local conditions, the ecosystem and environment in Berlin that frames where you get the first money. This might be different in Barcelona, Stockholm or London. The instruments are pretty similar, but the single local instruments might have different names and work in slightly different ways. When you look at the startup process, you have several phases. We also speak about Valley of Death. In this graphic you see two valleys. So it's a very difficult process where you need actually more and more money. And just think on a technological startup where you have to create machinery, where you have to actually test machinery, where you need customers for this machinery, you need actually to produce this machinery, so you need actually millions, sometimes for some products billions of euro to really create a company. When we take it easy, you start out with nothing, you are in a very early stage where you might receive the first money, coming with a business plan, coming with a business idea. You can imagine nobody will give you $1 billion for just some pieces written as business idea. But that's where we speak about. We speak about very early phases where you might have a research result, where you might have an idea, where you work out a plan, and you just start with thinking about, can I make a business out of it? Does it make sense? Where do I find any little finance to get myself or my team started? And when we see these phases, the most likelihood you have receiving money is public money. I think 90–80% of startups in a very early beginning receive public funding. 40% of the entire startup funding in Europe is public funding. You have public banks, you have ministries giving you money, you have associations giving you money. So it's a very broad spectrum in Europe that give you money. In Germany, we have established one funding source which is typical for academic startups, not for all startups. That's typical for academic startups at universities and research institutions, and that's the so-labeled exist type. That is, in an ideal case, thought for a team of 3 people who want to start up in technology, and they might receive 150,000 euro as scholarship. That means you don't have to pay it back. So you get it. It's not a loan. It's just, if you want to have it like that, a present. That's for 1 year, with the expectation that you use this money for your own living, for the development of prototypes in your business plan, for, let's say, getting advice from every source you need, legal advice, advice from accountants, from everyone who might help you in going the first steps in your business. Most startups we incubate get that kind of funding first. It really helps in the early phases. Of course, 150,000, it's far from being enough in starting a tech startup, producing, testing technical equipment, but it helps you to refine your idea towards a business plan, towards that stage where you might receive other kinds of funding. The same, but very Berlin specific. It's a Berlin startup. That's 50,000 per euro. It's for a half year. It's actually half exists type for 3 persons, and it's linked to the same expectations. So in an ideal case, you could get both. After another at the university, you could stay 1.5 years in a academic incubation process, refining your ideas, building prototypes, finding the first customers, refining your business idea, and then you might find other sources of finance. Another source of finance during this time or after this time is increasingly crowdfunding or crowd investing, which is actually 4 different things. We speak about reward-based crowdfunding. That means you give to the people who give you money on a crowdfunding platform something back. It could be the product itself. If you produce a consumer product, whatever, you could say, okay, let me start the enterprise, you get the product for free, or you get that for free. That's reward-based. Donation-based means you receive the money, you don't have to give everything back. It's just a donation for your enterprise because someone really thinks you make something sense-making, sustainable, or social that deserves to get this donation. You have lending-based crowdfunding there. It's just a kind of loan where people give you money and expect that you give it back. And you have equity-based funding. That means people give you money but expect some shares of your startup later. So depending on your enterprise, your vision, your ideas, your own planning, you can go for all 4, but you have to frame it when you go to crowdfunding. And you also have to frame what you actually present to a widely unknown public at crowdfunding places. Crowdfunding places would be Kickstarter, Indiegogo, StartNext, Vision Bakery, and so forth. There are many with different regulations, with different kinds of crowdfunding approaches. So you have to get busy before you do actually with the whole platform mechanics, with the whole platform instruction regulations, the people in the platform, the crowd actually around platforms that might give you money. We just were researching that, and we're looking at the success of crowdfunding campaigns or project startups presented there, and we made this table to measure somehow whether it was successful or not. So we were looking of how many people were actually giving money, and it's the sum of money. Is it more than you expected, or is it less than so as expected? So overfinanced would be more, underfinanced would be less. And we were looking what topics actually are central in the most successful crowdfunding campaigns. And if you look at that, it's not sustainability or it's not any problematic issue. It's actually some leisure time, hands-on words that are most central, like make, help, music, laugh, record, build, how, first, more, hand. That is central when it comes to that. And that's also knowledge you should take with you when you design crowdfunding campaigns. Maybe it is even worthwhile to go to an expert in crowdfunding to get it really designed. And it's a way to get money. Some of the startups are really successful in collecting serious amounts of money using crowdfunding, but others fail. So having support and looking behind the mechanism, the mechanics of doing a crowdfunding campaign is very important. A next source of funding are public banks, like in Berlin, this Berlin Brandenburg Investment Bank, or for whole Germany, high-tech Gründerfonds. There you can get loans on a very good conditions, where you do not have high interest rates, where you have good conditions paying it back. KfW is a typical bank for supporting startups from a non-academic sphere. High-tech Gründerfonds is a bank supporting startups more from an academic sphere. EBB Ventures does both. So you have to get into that before you do that, but it's another option, but at later stages, not in the very early stages. You need to have customers, you need to have a business plan before you actually can receive money there. Another very prominent approach is business angels. Also in Berlin there's a business angel club in Germany. That are people who already started an enterprise successfully, have earned some money and want to invest in new startups. And there you have very, very different conditions doing that. And that's the same with founding angel. Founding angel also started enterprises, but do not only give money but also go into the enterprises in the management, which can make sense in getting very experienced managers for time of development of your enterprise into the board if you want to. That's all a matter of negotiating, of talking to those people, of having the conditions explained and valued, and do you agree to the vision of them? What do expectations to exist on both sides? So there are two options. There is a founding angel club also in Berlin. There is a business angel club in Berlin. You can go there, you can pitch there, you can sell your project, your startup there, but you have to be aware there are very different conditions up to exit strategies that they want to sell the enterprise after a certain while, that they have some growth expectancies. So that might not in any way fit your own expectations on your own startup. So both options are good options. Both options start when you really have a very developed business plan and finance concept, when you have the first customers, not in very early stages. And in later stages also venture seed or pre-seed capital comes in. Pre-seed does not work in very, very early stages. It works in quite early stages. So you need at least a business plan and a pitch deck, which is a kind of short PowerPoint presentations you can do in 3 minutes about your business concept. And venture capital can give you much more money than other sources. Up to several million or even 100 million when you need that, and they think it will be successful. But there are also some strict conditions like exit strategies. Venture capitalists negotiate that they want to sell this company to other owners to, let's say, have their revenues in investing in startups. So it's a matter of deciding yourself what you want. Do you see it as your baby? You better don't take venture capital. If you see it as something, as a period in life, and you go on with something else, venture capital is a very good source to be used in getting an enterprise growing and getting enough money, particularly for tech enterprises. When you compare, and what we did in another publications, the source of money, and you see that venture capital comes in actually after foundation, after we have a real enterprise, that in later stages. In really early stages you have founding angels, later also business angels, and you might have pre-seed venture capital, which is not so often. So it's not a common kind of finance source. And you also have family and friends and other entrepreneurs, so that's a more complete picture. You have different sources what you can tape. However, it's always difficult. Family, friends is a risk of losing the entire money. Business angels have conditions, venture capital has conditions. Public money, it's the easiest to get in the beginning, but it will never be enough of getting a tech startup really running. The sums are much too low. So you have to think about a portfolio of different sources. Crowdfunding might help in meantime getting an enterprise started. So you really have to make a plan to think about, what do I want with my enterprise? What are the visions, goals, strategies of my enterprise? And what money sources might I tape to get that running? Another and last source might be pitches and competitions. There are competitions in Germany, in Europe. We have regular competitions. We have investors dinners. In Berlin, we have the business plan, Berlin-Brandenburg business plan competition, which gives you a bit of money. It's not a lot. Stage 2 as European business plan competition of universities gives you more money. You have this Climate Kick Launchpad in Berlin, which gives you money to sustainable enterprises, to digital enterprises. You have a IAT Digital giving you money. There are many, many, many more pitches and competitions where you can get money, but that should be always only an add-on on your finance plan, which should be based on other sources and a portfolio of sources we just have discussed.